Welcome, everybody. And this masterclass is when co-parenting feels like war. And that is a true thing. It really does. And you guys have come into here because you can relate to this conversation. What I want to do today is take a little different tack. And my friend and colleague, Kelly, is here to join us. And I'm bringing Kelly into this conversation because she's been through this piece. And Kelly has worked with me through this. And this conversation is particularly relevant to the work that we've done, Kelly, right? And if you've been following me along the lines, to me, this is another conversation around disengagement, conflict fishing, negative intimacy, narcissistic reversal, and projection. And these are the components that make this warlike because they're disorienting, they're confusing, and our impulses are to get into it, to fight the war. And when I'm talking with my clients on an ongoing basis with this, I use these references that I just gave you and one of the martial art of Aikido, which is disengaging, stepping back and letting their energy work against them. And this is really the concept of this. This is a long game and it doesn't make sense in the beginning when we start. Kelly, when you and I started working together, you were resistant to the whole idea, the whole concept of what I am bringing forward here. And there's an energy that is up in this that is panicky, it's anxious, it's defensive, and it's disorienting. And when we step into trying to strategically engage in this war, we have to throw out what we would consider normal logic. Because the personalities that we're dealing with are not logical. They make no sense. From the perspective of parenting, we would think that everybody wants to really work together to have the outcomes for these children to be one of happiness, of connectedness. But when the divorce in these arenas take place, when the separation in these arenas place, even if they're a paternity, that's not the case. It is one of me against you, and the children are the pawn. They are the piece in the middle that we're fighting over. And that does nobody any good, especially the children. So what we're trying to do is play the long game in this. We're trying to step back and say, okay, what is driving this? What is driving them? So I'm going to talk a little bit here, just so you guys can orient to the conversation a little bit more about what disengagement is about. It's not about checking out. It's about consciously being present for what's taking place and knowing that what is coming at you is content, not process. It is the reaction, not what's underlying it. And once we can understand what's underlying it, we can logically organize it and do something different to it. So understand that when this is coming at you from the other direction, what they're trying to do is engage you. That is where they get the control. And if you cannot step in or you know where to step in, you can go to great lengths to disarm that process. The notion of I can engage you, and when I engage you, I can control you. If you think about this from the perspective of the relationship that you've already had with this other person, this makes perfect sense. They have been coming at you. They have been trying to get you into the fight because they know how to manipulate you. They know how to control you from that space. And when you don't give that to them, they don't know what to do. And there's another component of this that actually ramps this war up more, but we're playing the long game here. This is strategic. And we're waiting for them to waste their energy in it and or for them to make a mistake that is critical in that process. The other piece, and what you found out, Kelly, and I'm going to bring you into this conversation in another way here shortly, but what you found is that over time, as you stepped back and did this, that control left and you were able to start to actually live your life. It wasn't that they weren't trying to continue that process, but where your biggest fears were dropped away because the engagement with your children became entirely different. They were seeing a different person and a different reaction and a different relationship started to evolve from there. And that's the goal here, guys. That's the big picture goal. The other thing that we start to find with these personalities is one of when you make a statement of something that is going wrong, that you don't like, that isn't working, that is counter parenting, or that is against what seems to be reasonable in this process as a parent focused situation, is you start to find out that they take that conversation and they reverse it on you. It's not me, it's you. This is what you're doing. And in the long game, that becomes their narrative. So what you're hearing from them is their inability to self-reflect and see actually what is taking place. And this is nothing to do with you. This has to do with them and their history. So part of the war that you're getting drawn into is something that you're taking personally. And what I'm going to say is going to kind of make you guys tilt your head like a Labrador a little bit. And that is, they can't see it and it's not personal. This is not personal. The attacks that are coming at you are not about you. The problem is that you take them personally and you get drawn into a battle that is not conducive to, if we want to put it in terms of the war, winning the war. So we are choosing the battles, we are choosing the engagements, we are choosing the way that we want to go into this. So knowing how to respond and where to respond is essential, because if you don't, you're just replicating the cycle, you're replicating the war. So Kelly, if you can, come into the conversation with me here a little bit and talk about, if you will, a little bit about where we started, what your situation was, and how you and I walked through it. Because what I love about our relationship now is it's one that's grown professionally out of what was a client teacher conversation or a coach client conversation, right?
Yeah. I love, oh my gosh, I just could resonate so much when you were speaking because I could physically feel where I was sitting having the conversation when you were telling me exactly what you're saying right now. Because all I could think was that there was that panic. I kept thinking he's asking me to retreat, if we're using that war speak. He's asking me to retreat. I'm so tired of retreating. Like I'm exhausted. And it felt like I was being asked to to uh, to back down, to succumb. And what I was up against at that time was the fear of losing my children, the fear of losing my new partner, and my fear of really losing my sanity. And those are some pretty massive pieces, right? So I had all of those panics fueling this, and you told me this, and the thing that really got me was you said something to the effect of basically like, you've how many times have you done this cycle, right? Over since you're like with your ex, how many times have you done this cycle? And all I could think was, I'm willing to try anything to do it differently. And the other piece that really stuck for me that made me so resistant was it sounded too easy, right? I had been putting so much energy into prepping for the fight, trying to foresee what was going to come next, trying to figure out where he was going to go, that I had no energy or resources to even think about what I wanted anymore. I was coming at it from a defensive position all the time, and it was exhausting, and it was affecting my mental health and my parenting, and nothing was changing. We would have the lull, and then it would be back. Lull, and it would come from a different angle. Lull, and it would come from a different angle.
Yeah, and the fear-driven piece of this, I'm going to lose my kids. The fear of this is I'm going to lose my sanity. The fear of this is I'm going to lose my new partner and everything that I'm working towards. And when it's fear driven, it takes us out of problem solving pieces. And the whole notion of parallel parenting as it comes into this is one of child focused and letting this other stuff go, because this other stuff isn't going to stop until it stops. And the more that we're engaged in that, the more we replicate it. So what is your goal, right? And I speak with this with clients almost every single day. Your parenting is not predicated on what they think. Your parenting is not predicated on what they project. Your parenting is not predicated on what they're trying to control with you. Your parenting is predicated on your values, your understanding of good parenting, and how you engage with your children. And if we're doing that right, if we understand what parenting is and how to do it in a bounded, engaged manner, then that takes the foreseat in the process. Our children are looking for sanity. Our children are looking for consistency, and our children are looking for boundaries and proper engagement. Regardless if the other parent is a Disneyland parent or whatever it is, this is where we're setting down. And it's not always going to be pleasant. It's not always going to look like we're winning this game, but this is the long game. And it takes time to seed that. And for most of the people that are involved in this war are not seeing that. They are in this moment of, oh, damn, I don't know what's going to happen here, and I'm scared. So I am going to do something that I think I should do that is contraindicated to what actually needs to be done. We're trying to get the signal clear for everybody to see outside of the static of the fight. And when we're getting drawn into the chaos, because the chaos is the driver of this, and I'm going to guess that everybody that is listening to this can feel the chaos that they're stuck in. This is the role that you're being sucked into, because where there's chaos, nobody can figure out what to do. And that is the control that some of this, I'm going to use the word and I hate to do it, but this narcissistic behavior brings forward. It is a chaos machine. And when we can turn the chaos off, then we get to live our lives. So for you, Kelly, if I can bring you back into the conversation here, um, the fear of losing your partner was a part of you trying to fix it and not having the conversation, the logical conversation with your partner about how to manage this. And when we were able to settle your system down, your partner said, "Hey, I got it. Ain't no thing but a chicken wing. We can do this." Because there was logical conversation going forward and there was boundary that your children required of you that you weren't giving them because you were trying to package this whole thing in a way that would make sense. And what happens for so many people in this process by doing that when we bring a new partner in is our children feel abandoned. And when they feel abandoned, they're going to go in that direction of, oh, this person's here for me and I'm going to be there for them. When in truth, you're there for them, but you're not paying attention to what that need is. So the boundaries in relationships become necessary to navigate this, right? Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, and I think that,
Because this was a piece that we had to navigate
yes, I was
together in a
very
big, big way.
resistant. I was very, very resistant to this because again, there's another piece that always comes up in this work is I was really angry that it wasn't fair too, because
Mhm.
my ex was allowed to have his partner. I was so stuck in the semantics and the balance of it. And what I didn't realize was happening was that I was so engaged in the chaos that the amount of energy I had in that clear space was like wafer thin, right? And I wanted to be clear about what I wanted first and foremost. I needed to get clear about what I wanted first and foremost and how that was currently impeding the relationship I wanted to have with my children. And how did I get that back, right? Because what I didn't realize, what felt impossible at the time because of the chaos, was to be able to have enough bandwidth for the three things that mattered to me: my relationship with my kids, my relationship with myself, and figuring out what I wanted in my life.
Mhm.
And when I allowed myself, when you guided me through the disengagement process, all of a sudden, I wasn't expending all that energy over there, right? So automatically, I was operating at more of a or more of a abundance and a power than I had in probably forever in that relationship. And just the breath that I was able to take, that I remember thinking after I practiced this the very first time, I kind of sat back, and I thought, wow, I feel different. Like I felt like, oh wow, like that disengagement really proved to me I do care deeply about this relationship with my children and being a good parent. I do care very deeply about how my home is going to feel. I do care. I mean, it helped restore my confidence. So not only was the chaos, I stepping back from the chaos and trying to do things differently, but I was regaining my own footing and how it feels to be just a little bit adjacent to what I'd been in. And I don't think I'd ever felt that in that way before. And it allowed me to catch my breath and to dig deeper into how I could engage with you and your process, right?
So the other component that really, stands out to me and why I wanted to bring you into this conversation, because so many people have this experience of I'm being alienated from my kids. They're being brainwashed. They're being told things that aren't true. And this was very much a part of your situation to the extent of your kids were making allegations that were accurate, if not blatantly not true, but they were given the perception of that through the other parent, and you were trying to battle that. You were staunch, locked down into the fight of what they were telling you. And for kids, especially tweens and teens, or kids that are coming into that cognitive power, is you can't tell them that they're wrong. It is a counter to, no, that's my experience, and this other person's told me that, and they wouldn't lie to me, and this is true. And through the disengagement process that we worked through with you with this, there was an unfolding for them over time. Again, this is a longer game. This isn't going to change like that. But there was an unfolding over time that said to them, wait a minute, this is incongruent to what I see. This is incongruent to what my experience is here. And they begin to not necessarily say that to you, but express differently, where they had stepped back, they were stepping in. And it wasn't in an apologetic manner, it was through engagement. So when we start to do this, guys, when we start to run through this the way that Kelly and I ran through this, there's an organic unfolding to it. There is a waiting, and this isn't about fair. This isn't about being able to show the kids that you're right in this process, that they were wrong in this process, but that I'm here in this process. I am welcoming in this process. And I'm going to show you that I'm going to open this door up and I'm going to let you in. And I don't expect you to come running through that door, but the door's open. And I'm not making the other parent bad. I'm not even talking about the other parent. I'm not making you bad because you're not. I'm here. My heart's open. I'm vulnerable. I love you. Let's see how this goes. And you want to talk about trusting a process. This is a huge, vulnerable trust. And no matter what the situation here is you guys can't walk through this door by yourself. You can't read a book. You can't listen to a podcast. You can't walk through this by yourself. It requires reflection. And it requires this inquiry that Kelly brought up about, what do I want? And what you think you want in the moment might not be what you really want, because it's about, sometimes I just want this to stop. This is killing me. This is killing my kids. What do I want? And the notion of that and distilling it into a strategy, distilling it into a practice, distilling it into how I am going to consciously fight this war, becomes how we go through it. And when we've got this notion of where the engagement needs to be, we find that it's pretty small. And when we plug that into what we want, this becomes much clearer. Kelly, if you took this conversation from where we started to the middle to where you are in this process now, would you say that your what I want was very different? That in the beginning, it was really amorphed. It had no form. It was reactionary and it was in the chaotic form. Walk our listeners through that process that you went through with me and that you went through with you and the reflection of your kids and your partner as you went through this.
Oh my gosh, I can't help but smile. Oh, it brings tears to my eyes. I literally never could have imagined in a million years what my life would feel like in that. When I think about my ex and I think about that time and I think about my kids and my relationship with them now and my relationship with myself and the freedom that I feel, um, it's unbelievable. And I remember through that process, it was like a detox, right? Because I went from a place of I was in so much pain and so much fear that all I wanted was for him to hurt and to go away. Like I was just so much bandwidth I was giving to him. Um that I just oh, I wish I could just go back and recapture all that time with my kids, but I'm so glad I learned all this because it was so rich in so many ways. But as I went through the process, right, and as I started getting more skills and more support and starting to really experience the shifts that were happening, right? The shifts that were happening within myself, the shifts that were happening from, yes, leaving that door open and just like sending copious amounts of love to my children and not pushing them and allowing for just trusting that this was going to unfold as long as I stayed really true to this process and what I was learning, that there had to be a change, right? At some point, even if the change was just with me. It was a loosening, right? It was a loosening of the the tether into the chaotic situation into this like freedom, like almost like a float away. And I floated back and landed back in my own life with my kids and with my partner and with myself. And when I think about my ex, like he's given me ample opportunities to jump right back into the cycle, right? And what I
Hmm.
realized the real different, how I knew things had really shifted was I used to say, nope, not engaging, right? But there was a fight in that disengagement, right? I wasn't really disengaging. I was pulling back as a strategy, right? What it shifted into was, oh, I see this behavior. Oh my gosh, I remember when I would have jumped at that, right? Oh, I can recognize where my thought pattern goes. Oh, he is being a really nice guy. Maybe I'll just give him a little bit more information. Where I used to go into that here, kitty, kitty, right? I can
Mhm.
now see it and recognize it. And instead of feeling, it's like an observation, right? And I just think I have no interest, right? Like I just don't have any interest. It's kind of dissipated for me, right? He's who he is. He's going to be who he is. When the behavior pops up, I might have a little, as time goes on, it gets less and less, right? But I have a little, but now I'm just like, oh, wow, like that's where it is, right? That's where I would have jumped in.
Yeah.
And now I can just kind of go, wow, that must be really hard for him to put so much energy into this, right? And that's his business
Mhm.
and his job. And I get to stay in my life with my kids and my partner and myself. And it's like a buzzing bee, right? Just buzz, buzz.
Growing confidence.
Yes. And it's so, I mean, I feel it in my stomach when I talk about it. It's just this like warm coming home. And I feel it in my kids. And it just, it just, it's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. It works. It works.
And your children have dropped all of the bad narrative, all the
Mhm.
crazy narrative. It doesn't come into any part of your conversation or your relationship any longer.
Nope.
And they show up.
Mhm.
And they show up with you a lot.
Yes. And it's they've expressed to their friends that their relationship with me feels really safe and
Mhm.
really real. They feel very close to me. And I mean, honestly, when you and I met, I would never have guessed it could have been like that.
Love successes. And this success is available, but it's not easy work. It's stuff that you have to step into and find the nuances of what's going on. When I talk about disengagement, it's not a blanket statement, it's a very nuanced statement. But understanding in your individual situations what engagement is necessary and what engagement isn't. So I'm going to take a short detour here for a second because there's a question here in the question and answer piece, and I want to utilize that for a moment because it's exactly what we're talking about here. So one of our listeners is talking about having to go back through mediation, through court ordered mediation a lot, and having a child that's caught in the middle of this process. And I'm going to just kind of step through this real quick step with you on this, but this notice of complete disengagement, lack of co-parenting, and having the other parent reject the calls when your daughter is in his care. Why are you calling your daughter when she's in his care? Because that is a distraction from his parenting time, and that's a distraction from his engagement with his daughter at that point, and it's bringing her into an uncomfortable situation, right? So the disengagement, even there, it's there and there's a court order that's available to you. It's a point of contention that he's got control of, and that you are getting sucked into the fight with. And I'm going to say something that most parents reject to me in the initial conversation and come to really understand it in the long game. And that is that phone call to your daughter is not for your daughter, it's for you. And it's taking your daughter and putting her in an untenable situation of having to talk to you in front of somebody that is listening and that they know that they can't talk freely with. And when you talk to her in those conversations, it's not very long because it can't be very long. It's not very deep because it can't be very deep. And learning to trust, and this is the hard one, that they are okay is where you have to sit. And your anxiety has to step down and allow for that. Because when the child is with you, that is the place where you make the difference. It's not when they're with the other parent. And when you make that more complicated for them, you make it more complicated for you, and you open the place for the fight. And this is very much about what was going on for you too, Kelly. right? It's not fair. This is my right. I should be able to do this. And your kids were caught in the crossfire of I have to make an alignment here somewhere. And I'm going to make the alignment where it's safe for me, not where it's actually safe in the big picture, but where I don't get emotionally beat up. Because the coercive control that this narcissistic patterning shows up with is not just the control of you, but it's the control of the children as well, because that is the tool. And maintaining, okay, so here's the next piece. Maintaining the relationship with them across country is an added nuance to this conversation, right? So I started, Steph, with this, who the anonymous person came in as, with the nuance in this isn't a blanket statement. We take that if they're across country, where do we begin to learn how to nurture that relationship in different fashions when it's getting cut off? Now, when we go to a mediator and we're saying we're being cut off, it's got to be something that's trackable. It's got to be something that you can really talk about. But here's the funny thing with this. We're expecting the court, we're expecting somebody in authority to make somebody do something that they can't really make them do. There's a component of, and we see it in so many systems in our world of, huh, hold my beer. I'll show you what you can and can't do. Make me. And that is empowering. So we have to work through a process with our coaches of, huh, that doesn't work. Let's pull this apart. Let's look at this fabric through a different lens and see where the paths might be. And even where the paths might be for bringing the system in, because there is a place to bring the system in. But it has to be well thought out, well planned, and taking into account the nuances of the situation. And here's the bigger problem, or a bigger part of the problem is if you're working with attorneys, right? They don't think like this at all. They are about the fight, and they are about, well, we're going to take this to the court and we're going to do this. And that may all be fine and good, and they may be actually good attorneys. But they're not versed in the nuance of what we're trying to do. And when you understand this, when you are working with somebody like me or Kelly, that you are able to give them different ways to approach this. And what I hear from attorneys that I work with frequently is, oh, I hadn't thought about that. That really makes good sense. I would have never approached it that way. And then they'll go in because we're laying it out differently. We're taking the chaos out of the conversation. We're creating systems of result-driven process that the system can grab a hold of and go, oh, now I see what I didn't see. And they might not see it the first time. They might not see it the second time, but the third time they usually see it. And this becomes the leverage that we're going through. So what I'm talking about here is in the long game of the strategy of fighting this battle, of fighting this war, if you will, is to know that there is a turning point that happens. And that turning point isn't determinable. The turning point happens when the turning point happens. And the degree of anxiety that comes along with walking through that portal can be excruciating because you can't see it. But I like to look at life through a different lens. And it's taken me the better part of my lifetime to get to looking through a lifetime through a different lens. And that this is a progression. This is a never-ending story of the progression of your life, your legacy, your children's life, their legacy, your grandchildren's life, and their legacy. But this starts with you. And being willing to sit in the discomfort of the unfolding of that is not an easy piece. And that doesn't mean that we just sit back and we go, I'm just going to let this unfold. No, we stick a rudder in the water. And we try to guide it while we are in this current. So the lifetime process is what we're trying to really initiate in this. And the lifetime process is that of your relationship with your children, your parenting of your children, and the disconnection. You know, you guys got out of the relationship with this other person for a reason. And my experience with 90% of my clients is they're still dancing the same dance that they danced with the other parent then. You're still in the relationship. That's that negative intimacy that they are holding you onto. They are gripping you and you're feeling stuck in it. And the reason you're stuck in it is because of your choices. They don't have the control that you think that they have, even though it feels like it. And I know, Kelly, again, because I brought you into this conversation today for this reason, that this was part of your world. And if you can, as we start to lean into the question and answer part of this conversation that we're going to have with the group here in a minute, that your experience of that your exact experience of how you were being held into this with your ex. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just speak freely. I was really suicidal when I met you because I thought I've done everything I can, right? I've left the relationship. I've, started like a new life, but nothing. How in the world can I be here again, right? And how does this keep happening? And I didn't realize, like, I'm a really hard worker, and I'm guessing everybody on this call is a really, really hard worker. It's hard work to be in relationship with these people, and it's hard work to be out of relationship with these people or think we're out of relationship and still be in relationship. And what what I realized through this is, like, I was already putting so much effort in, right? I had the energy, but working this different way gave me an avenue to switch that. I love the turning point because this is a place of trust, right? Like, I trusted you. I trusted you. I trusted that you'd worked with a lot of people in this before. And by listening to your podcast, I knew, why would you have all these followers if everyone hadn't had this experience, right? Like, so you knew what you were doing. And so when I tried it, it was like, it just gave me a place to put that energy and that try harder that is just inherent in who I am into a different vein of trying harder to really get out and back into my own life, back into my own lane, and to realize that if I remember sitting with you and we talked about this. I said, like, what if I never have a relationship with my children again? Right? Like, what if they we never have a relationship? And you said something to the point of, like, you are building a new relationship with them, even if they're not physically engaging at this time, because you're disengaging from something, you're being calmer, you're learning new skills, you're modeling new ways. And even if you think that they weren't living with me at the time, right? I had little to no access to them, but I stuck with that. And it didn't look the same as my other friends who were parenting, but it really changed the whole dynamics. And it has been a long game, but you know what? It's been worth every second, because if this is what I get to have later, it's worth the journey. And I'm not saying the journey's over, but now I know that we are headed somewhere, even though it doesn't feel like it. Because I listened to the question that was being asked, and that's a tough situation. It's a terrifying situation, right? But if we're all energetic creatures and we can all communicate through distance, right?
Right.
When we shift, even if we don't have direct contact, I experienced it. My kids felt it. They felt it in the sound of my voice. They felt it they just felt it. I can't even explain it. And they started to orbit differently.
Thank you so much. You know, the fear that drives this of our children's safety, the anxiety that comes out of my children aren't safe. Um, we have to understand that not everybody knows how to parent. And when we've got exes that have histories of not having good parents, of not having the experience of being parented and understanding what parent is, it's like kids are going to learn. They're going to go out. They're going to fall. They're going to hurt themselves. They're going to do this stuff. They're going to be fine. They don't understand that some of that's true, and that there has to be um, some level of I'm watching what's going on, of not being neglectful, of being there and being able to actually watch them in that process and help them with the correction. And they miss that corrective piece, so they become negligent, and sometimes our kids are at risk. But when we start to go through the court process, they don't know that. They don't know the history that's there. They don't know that that wasn't just a boo-boo. They don't know that until there is a progression of this stuff happening, that there is a problem in place. And even when that occurs, we can't always fix it, or the court isn't going to necessarily fix it. So what we do is we pull back here, and the littles are the ones that are at the biggest risk. But as our children start to reach some cognitive areas, 6, 7, 8, if we're parenting in a really good fashion, we are teaching them self-care. We're teaching them how to take care of their own places in this. I remember, and I know that some of my team relates to this one a little bit. I've got, I'll share a quick anecdote with another client. One of there was a parent that had a new partner, and that new partner was into dirt bike riding and stuff, and they had, I think, an 8 and a 10-year-old at the time, and they were taking these young kids out into the desert and going balls to the walls on four-wheelers and all this stuff. And dad was just absolutely panicked about that. It's how, like, how can you let kids this age do that? And he was going back to the court trying to fix it. And the court was looking at him like, you know, you're the problem here. And that's not something that we can intervene in. And that's not something that we can do. And he kept pressing it. He kept losing time. And he came into one of my classes, and I said, that approach is not going to do anything for you. It's going to continue to frustrate you and get you mad at the system, and you're going to continue to make the mistakes that you're making because you're fighting something that you can't fight. The fight here is, let's teach your kids how to ride these things. Let's teach them the safety protocols for this. Let's go out and get them in classes, and let's do the classes with them at a training facility where you are witnessing them learning how to do this, and they are witnessing you being engaged with them in this process. And when he started to do that, his kids engaged, and he could see the children's proficiency in this, because we can't take the fun out of life and we can't fight a battle that we can't fight. So let's find a different way to maneuver in this. And what eventually ended up happening with this guy is one of his kids ended up riding competition motocross and was really good at it. And what ended up happening is he ended up going out with them and riding. But they were doing it right. They were doing it with the right equipment. They were doing safety checks. They were getting more proficient. They were getting training. And this became a place where the engagement was. So we have to look at how we perceive safety and not safety, and how we can make it better if we can't make it perfect. And this is the process of working through having somebody help you through this process. So I'm going to finish here for a minute. I'm going to take a few questions. Kelly, I'd like you to stick around and engage in this, because I want you to have some input in this. But before I do that, just understand, guys, there's a lot of people in this masterclass tonight. And you're not alone in this. You guys are going through this, and there's a collective in this, and there's so many people that are doing it. What you are doing right is you're in an inquiry, you're searching, you're trying to find answers. And that's what I'm here for. This is what Kelly's here for. This is what we're here for. This is what this program's always been about. And there are paths forward for you. But again, it requires you stepping in and getting the help that you need. And we have many resources. Some of them are free. There's membership stuff here. There's coaching that I do on a daily basis. I know that Kelly does this stuff as well. Reach in and make the next step, engage in that process. The question is what happens here when you stop fighting and you start leading? That's your journey here. We've got a couple of things coming up, and I am really excited about these two pieces that I'm going to talk about. I have reconfigured my coaching training in a fashion that whether you are a person that's going through this, or you are a professional that wants to help people in this more, we have a protocol to walk through to really get to what you want, to get to what's in the way, to get to how to engage professionals, to walk through this process, to really understand where to go and how to do this. And it's rich. It's really rich. And we're doing it in a fashion that there's going to be moment coaching and being coached and reversing roles and working that piece through. Reach out. You're going to get emails for this. You're going to see it. Think about it and step in. Our first one part of this is in July. It's a two-parter. If you choose, it doesn't have to be, but the second part of this, if you really want to get into the teeth of the dragon here, is our teacher training. We've got a high conflict diversion program teacher licensing process, and that's the second weekend of this, and that's going to be in September. The two fit together so well, and the expense is going to save you so much in your big process. You guys are spending tons of money and tons of resources and tons of energy in this system fighting this battle. This is going to teach you how to really be efficient with it, so you don't have to expend the expenditures that you're in, and that you can actually use where you've been to get to where you want to go.
Brooke,
Okay?
can I step in for real quick? Because that is, I will tell you, I was in the court system. I was on, my ex had taken me back to court 5 times in 7 years until I worked with you. And to date, now it's been 3 years of no court.
And success in the process. So this is fighting the war that you can win, not the one that you're going to get stuck in. This is not Afghanistan where there's no way out. There's a way out here, but it is, again, it's a strategic path. So I'm going to stop talking for a minute. I'm going to open up to some questions. There's a Q&A position here. If you guys are still here a little bit, you want a little bit of feedback, I'm going to take about 10 minutes or so and enter into the conversation with you. Please join me. I lost something there. Where am I at here? Struggling. Mossy, you just sent something to me and I'm not seeing it. Okay. So how can that translate into quick reaction to my situation? We've got that one. Okay, let me step into this one a little bit. We've got a question about how maintaining a relationship with your child when they live across country, and this is a really difficult one because getting the contact is a hard piece, and I don't know how old your children are in this one, but there becomes a point as you nurture your relationship with your children, that they're going to reach out and they're going to engage with you because there's a connection there. When you get that moment of having that time with that child, utilize it so there is connection, that it's not superficial, that there is attachment that's taking place, that there's planning that's taking place, that there is positive anticipation that is engaged in the next engagement that's going to take place with that. And use that time not to play a Disneyland parent, but to be really attuned to that child, where you learn how to listen and process. And when they come to you and say, you're never there, or you don't engage because they've been brainwashed, you can actually look at them and go, wow, that sounds really intense for you. And I'm wondering, is that really your experience? Because if that's your experience, I want to do something different. I want to really make a shift with this, and let's work together to do that. so that it isn't adversarial and it isn't defensive, it's engaged. And that's a difficult piece to do. And daily phone calls, frankly, to your point, daily phone calls don't work. It's too much. And that's for you wanting or you thinking that the daily contact is really essential. You're going to get resistance because they're living a life and they've got other things to do. They've got other friends in their world that they're engaged with. But if you take the time to set once or twice a week aside to really have not just how is school or what's going on with tennis, but an enriched conversation of what do you think about a situation in your world, or what do you think about a world situation based on where they are in their world, there's more to it. And that's where we want to start to draw in. And again, by working with somebody like me or working with somebody like Kelly, we're going to help you pull that piece out. We're going to help you create that conversation and that patterning so you're not just doing it on the fly, that you've actually got some content to it and the ability to do it. Mallory, you're asking the question here of how do you avoid disengaging too much? That's a fine line, and I'm not sure what disengaging too much is, because if you actually understand the disengagement process, you're not going to disengage too much. Disengagement isn't just, again, I'm done. Disengagement is a cognitive look at, is there something here that needs attention? Most of it in these high conflict situations doesn't need attention. And again, that's not something that you can get right off the top and go, huh, I'm not going to disengage there, because there might be something that needs attention. But when you do this long enough, when you work with somebody that can help you discern and disseminate what's important, you get your feet underneath yourself and you start to do this organically and naturally. But it doesn't start there. This isn't a blanket piece. It never is. My good friend Michelle Mitchell, who you guys have heard me talk about frequently, who also went through this with me, who also trained with me, and is also a coach in this arena, who is very proficient, does ghostwriting. So she takes the information in, disseminates it for her clients, and gives them what needs to happen next. And that might be something that you need. Even if it's not ghostwriting, we can help you learn how to do this piece, and that's the important piece. So Heather, when discussing an electronic communication plan, your ex refuses to allow your son to call. The first question that I have in this is how often do you see your son? And is it frequent? Because that's where your communication needs to happen with your son. You need to trust that your son is attached to you through your attachment with your son. Because again, um, when we don't allow for some of that, we've really put our kids in a no-win situation. How's your son supposed to go, yeah, your mom's calling, you can't talk to her. What can he do? There's nothing there. So he's in the middle of a fight. And when you step into, I want to speak with my son, with him, he's going to flip you the bird and go, no. And that's the control piece, right? So when we step back from that and we start to understand, okay, how do we get to where we want to get to here? There's a plan that happens with that. And it's not this or that, it's this and that. And without getting deeper into the conversation with you, I can't answer that question. Okay. Um, Steph, you can follow Michelle on Instagram at Coach Michelle, I think is what her handle is in that. But you can find her. She's really good at what she does in that ghostwriting realm. Okay, everybody, I so enjoy doing this with you. This is information that I really want to get out to all of you. I want you to understand deeply that this is my passion. I've been doing this for over 20 years. Um, like Kelly, there are many people that have taken the next steps in development with this, with learning because they learned how to do this with me to take this to the next level of helping other people with this. But even if you take the next steps of just engaging in the process of coaching with me, your world's going to change. If you take the next steps of the coaching training, you're going to dive deep into stuff that you never imagined was available for you. And this is where the change in the world happens. This is where you get to make epigenetic changes within yourself that reflect in every aspect of your world. Keep coming back here. We do these almost monthly. Love to see your name show up. I love to see you guys be here. I love to do these conversations. Kelly will be back here with me. Michelle will be in with me from time to time. We're going to continue. And my request of you, don't be a passive participant in this. Step in. Make the commitment to make the change. Because if you don't, you're going to stay here. You're going to be stuck here. And I've had clients that have been stuck in this for years, like Kelly, that once they've engaged in the process, it's no longer their world. And you don't deserve for this to be your world, but you deserve it if you don't do something about it. So find us, engage with us, and I look forward to working with you guys. Take care, everybody.